The last command. He said he would come back home in one piece. He lied, but not in the way you think. October 29th, 2004. The sun had just begun to rise over the scorched rooftops of Fallujah. A dry wind whipped through the crumbling streets, stirring the dust like a warning. Sergeant David Keene tightened the strap of his Kevlar helmet, his hands steady despite what was coming. Operation Phantom Fury was about to begin, and David had been handed a mission so classified it didn't even have a name. Just coordinates, a call sign, and an objective: secure the silence. He was no stranger to war. Keene had served 2 tours in Afghanistan before volunteering for Iraq. But this felt different. Command wasn't telling them everything, and the strange radio blackout zones around Fallujah weren't helping his nerves. Locals spoke in whispers about an abandoned compound just outside the city limits. Even insurgents refused to enter it. Keene, you're leading Echo 2, his CO barked. 4 men, in and out. No backup unless you hear Code Crimson. He nodded, not because he agreed, because he knew there was no choice. By 2100 hours, Keene and his 4-man squad were moving under the cover of darkness. The air reeked of kerosene, sweat, and something else, something dead. As they approached the target compound, they saw it. A crumbling 3-story building surrounded by wreckage and rusted metal fences. The place looked like time had forgotten it. No movement, no lights, just an eerie silence that pressed down on them like a weight. Hold position, Keene whispered. He scanned the perimeter with his NVG goggles. Nothing. And then, click, the faint sound of a shutter. A camera, a sensor. They weren't alone. Eyes up, guns high, he muttered. Inside, the hallways were covered in dust and strange black markings, symbols none of them could recognize. The deeper they moved, the more surreal it became. Broken stretchers, old American flags, stained with something that looked like rust or blood, lay discarded in corners. This wasn't just a war zone, it was a tomb. Then they heard it, a faint voice crackling through their comms. He's watching. Keene froze. Who the hell is watching? Silence. They kept going. Deeper, past a locked steel door that had been blown open. Beyond that was a narrow hallway, ending in a blast door sealed shut from the inside. Keene raised his hand. Stack up. We breach on 3. He didn't know that when that door opened, reality would change. Forever. The blast door hissed as the hydraulics groaned under pressure. Keene's heart pounded, his breathing tight inside the mask. He wasn't afraid, not yet, but every instinct in his body was telling him something was deeply wrong on the other side. 3, 2, 1, breach! Boom! The door burst inward, the squad pouring into a dim, flickering corridor that stretched impossibly far. It wasn't on any blueprint. No intel had mentioned this. The hallway seemed to go on forever, curving slightly, like it was leading underground. Jesus, what the hell is this place? Corporal Mendez muttered behind him. No one answered. Their boots echoed unnaturally loud on the floor, a smooth black surface like glass. Along the walls were more of those strange symbols, glowing faintly in the dark. Some pulsed in a soft red. Others blinked like dying stars. The radio squawked, static. Then a voice, barely audible. Keene, they froze. That wasn't me, whispered Thompson, checking his comms. Turn around. Keene spun, rifle up. Nothing. But the door they came through, gone. Not just closed, gone, as if it had never existed. Now panic clawed at their throats. Even Keene felt it. Stay sharp. Move forward. Stay close. 30 meters ahead, the hallway opened into a large chamber. At the center was a table. No, a surgical slab, surrounded by shattered monitors and dried blood. Old military gear lay scattered across the room: helmets, dog tags, ripped uniforms, all American. Keene, I know these names, said Mendez, picking up a tag. This is Sergeant Wallace. He went MIA last year in Afghanistan. Keene's mind reeled. That's impossible. He never deployed to Iraq. Then why are his tags here? Suddenly, the monitors sparked. They flickered to life. Grainy black and white footage played, cycling through images. An Iraqi boy, an American family, a desert landscape. Then, Keene, a live feed of them, standing in that very room. Move! We're being watched! Keene barked. They turned to leave, but found themselves in another corridor. Different walls, different floor. It had changed, and it was impossible. They hadn't moved. Behind them, the footage kept playing, now faster. Flashing memories they had never lived, people they had never seen, screams that didn't belong to them. Then came the voice again, this time clear. You're already dead. Keene felt the chill crawl up his spine. It's a trap. The hallway had changed. Again, gone were the red glowing symbols. Now the walls were sterile white, flickering under fluorescent lights that buzzed like a nest of hornets. The kind of light you'd expect in a hospital or a laboratory. Where the hell are we? Thompson muttered, his voice dry and cracking. Keene clenched his jaw. Eyes forward. We find the exit. We regroup. We call in evac. But no one believed in an exit anymore. Not really. The air was too still, too dead. Then they saw her. At the end of the hallway stood a woman. Pale. Hair soaked in sweat, or blood. It was impossible to tell in the half-light. She wore a torn hospital gown. Her eyes were wide open, locked onto Keene's. She didn't move, didn't blink. Ma'am, he called. No answer. Don't move, Keene ordered his squad. He took a slow step forward. The woman remained still. Another step, still motionless. Then suddenly she grinned and vanished. Not turned a corner, not ran away. She simply blinked out of existence like she'd never been there. What the actual? Thompson gasped. Before he could finish, alarms blared. Red lights washed over the hallway. Sirens screamed in tones they'd never heard before, like the building itself was alive and afraid. A robotic voice echoed over the speakers. Containment breach, Zone 12C, Protocol Black. All units evacuate immediately. Termination authorized. Go, Keene shouted. They ran, through corridors that twisted like a maze. The white walls became gray, then rust-colored, then black again. The layout made no sense, like a dream that kept changing behind your back. Behind them, footsteps, not boots, bare feet, fast, slapping the floor in unnatural rhythms. They didn't turn to look. Mendez shouted, "Door, up ahead!" They reached it, another steel bulkhead. Keene slammed his hand on the control panel. Nothing. No power, shouted Thompson. Behind them, the footsteps stopped. A whisper floated down the hallway. You shouldn't have come. Then, bang. The lights exploded overhead. The hallway was plunged into strobing darkness, flashes of white, then black, then white again, and in those flashes, figures, dozens of them, standing still, wearing gas masks, military uniforms, faces hidden behind dark visors, weapons at their sides, but not aimed, watching. Keene raised his rifle, a flash of light. They were gone. Only silence remained. Then the panel lit up. Green. The door opened. Inside was a room unlike anything they'd ever seen. Half military command center, half laboratory. Dozens of screens, cryopods, X-ray boards covered in anatomical sketches. Not of humans, but of something close. Something wrong. This isn't a war mission, Keene whispered. This was never about insurgents. Then what? Mendez asked. Keene didn't answer because he saw something on the far wall, a map with pins, coordinates, names, his name, and next to it, a date. October 29th, 2004. Today. Keene's eyes locked onto the glowing map. The red pins blinked like the pulse of some hidden heartbeat beneath the earth. This, this is our location, Keene said quietly, voice barely audible over the hum of the machines. The date, October 29th, 2004. We're still inside Fallujah, Mendez said, stepping forward, her hand tracing a line between 2 points on the map. But this mission, this is different. This isn't just about clearing buildings or taking territory. No, Keene agreed. This is about control, about secrets. A sudden beep interrupted their thoughts. One of the monitors flashed a file labeled Project Elysium. Keene's brow furrowed. Mendez leaned closer. Elysium? That's not just a mission code, that's classified. The screen changed to video footage, grainy, black and white, a man strapped to a chair, his face obscured by shadows. He spoke, but the audio was garbled. Test subject, the caption read. The footage cut abruptly. Subject failed. A voice whispered through the speakers, chillingly calm. Keene felt a cold sweat break out. This is some kind of experimentation on soldiers. The squad looked at each other. The horror was sinking in. They weren't just fighting insurgents. They were fighting against something, someone that had been hidden in the shadows of this war. Mendez's voice trembled. Why would they keep this a secret? Because it's not just illegal, Keene said. It's inhuman. Suddenly, the room's temperature dropped. The breath of each soldier became visible. Thompson's comm crackled. Movement detected. They turned to see the cryopods shuddering. One by one, the pods hissed open. Inside were bodies, frozen, preserved, and then they moved, slowly, grotesquely. The test subjects, failed experiments, were alive, their eyes opened, pale, milky, but aware. Keene raised his rifle, aiming at the nearest pod. The creature inside hissed, a sound that wasn't quite human. We need to get out, Keene barked. But the door slammed shut. The last thing they heard before the lights went out was the whispered echo through the chamber. You can't escape the past. Trapped behind the cold metal door in the darkness, Keene, Thompson, Mendez, and the others held their breath, searching desperately for a way out of the nightmare. The lock mechanism clicked and groaned, but refused to budge. The silence was shattered only by the guttural growls and muffled moans rising from the frozen bodies around them. Keene pulled out his flashlight and swept the beam across the room. Suddenly, a cryopod a few meters away hissed open, and a creature began to stir. Its icy hands gripped the metal surface, eyes glinting in the dim light. The unnatural movements of the being told them it was far from human. Get ready, Keene shouted. The creature lunged forward. Thompson met it head-on, but the creature's strength was beyond human. Others started awakening from their pods, turning the chamber into a battlefield. The room echoed with the sounds of snarls, clashing metal, and desperate struggles for survival. Mendez frantically called for backup over the radio, but only static answered. Our comms are down, Mendez cried. We're on our own. Keene replied grimly. One wounded soldier collapsed, groaning in pain. Keene knelt beside him, shouting, Don't give up! Despite their dwindling hope, the 4 soldiers clung to each other. Their only choice was to survive and escape this nightmare. After a tense moment, the creatures slowed, seemingly responding to some unseen command. Seizing the opportunity, the soldiers searched for an exit. Keene pointed to a side corridor marked on their map. This way, there's got to be a way out. They quickened their pace through the dark, damp passage. Rusted metal plates littered the floor. Ancient battle inscriptions lined the walls. With every step, tension tightened around them. Then, a door appeared ahead. Keene reached out to open it, but heard a chilling whisper from beyond. Don't go. Stay here. Join us. Frozen with fear, the soldiers peered into the shadowy depths beyond the door. Slowly, the door creaked open, and a blast of freezing air swept inside. The freezing gust swept over them as the door slowly opened, revealing a vast chamber cloaked in shadows. The faint flicker of dying fluorescent lights cast eerie shapes across the walls, dancing over remnants of forgotten battles. Keene swallowed hard, gripping his rifle tighter. Every instinct screamed at him to turn back, but retreat wasn't an option. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of decay and something metallic, like blood long dried on rusted steel. At the far end of the chamber, a figure stood, barely visible in the gloom. It was draped in tattered military gear, yet its eyes glowed with an unnatural intensity. Welcome, Echo 2, the voice rasped, chilling them to the bone. You've reached the heart of the silence. Thompson raised his weapon, aiming steady despite the fear curling in his gut. Who are you? What is this place? The figure's lips twisted into a cruel smile. This place is a graveyard of secrets, of soldiers lost not just to war, but to something darker. Suddenly, the floor trembled. The walls seemed to close in as mechanical noises echoed. From the shadows, more figures emerged, half human, half monster, bearing the scars of twisted experiments. Keene realized with horror they were inside a covert bioweapons facility, abandoned but still active. The silence they were ordered to secure was not peace, it was containment. Code Crimson! Keene shouted into his radio, desperation breaking his calm facade. But no answer came. Their mission had become a fight for survival against horrors born from mankind's darkest ambitions. Every moment could be their last. The only way out was forward, through the heart of darkness itself. The realization hit them like a sledgehammer. This mission was a trap. Not just a trap set by the enemy, but a sinister design from within their own command. The echoes of whispered warnings, the radio blackouts, the abandoned compound. It was all a carefully orchestrated nightmare meant to bury a secret so dark it could shatter the very foundation of their beliefs. Keene's squad was now not just fighting for survival. They were battling to expose a hidden truth. But with every step deeper into the labyrinthine facility, the line between friend and foe blurred. The half-mutated soldiers lunged at them with feral speed, their movements erratic yet deadly. The team's well-practiced combat drills were tested to the limits as they fought desperately to hold their ground. Thompson fired bursts into the advancing creatures, while Mendez moved with lethal precision, covering their flanks. In the chaos, Keene spotted a terminal flashing urgently. A last chance. I'm going for the console, he yelled, dodging a swipe from a snarling beast. His fingers flew over the keyboard, trying to unlock the encrypted files. Come on, come on! The screen flickered, revealing logs of horrific experiments. Human test subjects injected with unknown serums, twisted into weapons of unimaginable power. Names, dates, and covert operations detailed in cold clinical language. The truth was worse than they feared. These were not just rogue bioweapons. They were soldiers like them, turned into monsters by those who should have protected them. Suddenly, alarms blared. The facility was initiating lockdown. Heavy blast doors slammed shut, trapping them inside. The creature horde was closing in. Keene's heart pounded. We don't have much time. We have to finish downloading these files and find an exit. This nightmare needs to be exposed. Thompson gritted his teeth, covering their backs. I've got your six, Keene. Let's bring this hell to light. As the squad fought their way through waves of abominations, a glimmer of hope sparked, the possibility that their sacrifice could save countless lives, but only if they survived the darkness that consumed them. With the facility locking down around them and monstrous enemies closing in, Keene and his squad were pushed to their absolute limits. Sweat dripped down their faces as they sprinted through the corridors, data drive clutched tightly in Keene's hand, their only hope to expose the horrific truth hidden beneath the desert sands. Explosions echoed in the distance, shaking the very foundation of the compound. The air was thick with dust, smoke, and the stench of decay. Every heartbeat felt like a countdown to the end. At the final junction, a massive steel door barred their path. Keene slammed his shoulder against it, praying it would give way. Just as the creatures caught up, the door groaned and slid open, revealing a narrow stairwell spiraling upward. "One last push," Keene shouted. They ascended the stairs as the creatures snarled below, their howls echoing up the shaft. Bursting onto the rooftop, they were greeted by the harsh desert dawn. A Black Hawk helicopter hovered nearby, their extraction team signaling urgently. As they climbed aboard, Keene looked back at the burning compound, the secrets it held now safely secured. His mission had cost them dearly, but the truth would no longer be buried. Operation Phantom Fury, classified no more, Keene whispered as the helicopter lifted into the sky. The world would hear their story, the last command of Sergeant David Keene and the nightmare that should never have been unleashed.